Good morning, Mr. Ray here. Hey, in this video, we're going to talk about a precise way to make turns using the gyro. It's got a little bit of complicated math, but I'll cover that as we go along. So let's get started. So, okay, now I have Lego's classroom development system for the EV3 up, and we're ready to create a project. So let's get down here, and you'll see I have a bunch of projects already in the hopper, but we're going to do a new one from scratch. And so when I bring up a new project, it brings up a blank canvas, which is what we call this area here, with a program start block. Now, this is one of the ways we can start a program. In fact, this is the common way you start a program. And so we'll just proceed from there. Now, there's 2 or 3 things you want to do right away in the program. There are some settings you want to make for the motors that drive the robot. First, you want to use a movement to set your motor, this command to set your motors to B and C that drive. In this case, B is the left wheel, C is the right wheel. And I like to also add the command that tells the motor what to do when we finish a movement. And that command tells the motors that when I do tell it to move and the movement is finished, that it will set the brake when that movement stops. I also have the option to let it coast or float, as they call it here. So now then, we want to make a my block. Remember, a my block is just a set of instructions that we can group together, and we can use one block to call all of those instructions in our program. So let's make a my block, and it'll be more obvious. So I go to the my block tab or button on the left, tell it I want to make a my block, and I'm going to call this my block. I got to give it a name, turn. Then I'm going to space out here a little ways and add angle. Now I'm using angle to tell me what the next thing is. So this my block will be named turn angle, but I'm using this last angle because I want to add an input, and I'm going to call that angle. Now you'll see that when I start using this, I can see angle here, but I'll see a blank hole here. So I'll show you. So now, this is the start of my block or my subprogram, and over on this side, you'll see that I have a block for my turn, and as I noted, this is blank, which is why I put angle here. So I would put a number in here, say 75. Now then, this my block, what I want it to do is whatever I put in here, I want it to turn that many degrees left or right. Right if the number is positive, left if the number is not. So how do we get started? Well, first we want the turn angle to start with the gyro reset to 0, so that we know where we're at and how we're going to do that. So we need to come back over and get a gyro sensor. My sensor is on port 1, and I want to reset the angle. Now this will set the gyro reading to 0. And so now then, as I turn, that angle will represent how far I've turned since I called this my block. So now I want to create some variables. Now remember, a variable is just a place I can store numbers and I can pick them up later and use them. So I'm going to make 3 variables. So I go to the variable tab, tell it I want to make a variable, and I'm going to call this B speed. I'll make another one, call it C speed, and I'll make another one. I'm going to call it turn error. Okay, so the two speed variables represent the speed that I want the motors to turn at when I get down into the main part of this my block. So what I want to do to begin with is I want to set the speeds to 0, just so I know what they are initially. I can right click on this and I can duplicate it, and I can change that to C speed. Duplicate it again, and I'm going to set this to turn error. And what I want the turn error to be is I want it to be the difference between what the gyro reads and what this angle I specified is. So this angle initially will be 0 out of the gyro. So if I say 75, this would be 75. So now let me do a little arithmetic here that we're going to use more than once, and we'll show you how to do that. So I need to go over to the operators, and I want to find the difference. So I'm going to get a difference operator, and I want to know the difference between this angle and the gyro angle. So conveniently, I can get that angle. Now this variable is local to this my block, my understanding. It means that I couldn't see it over here. I can only see it inside this my block. These variables that I defined, any block in the program can see them, and it's the same value. Now I want to read this angle. Let's see, how do I do that? Well, let's go back to the sensors, and you'll find, again, I want to set this to 1. Now I have the difference between the two angles. There's one other thing I want to know about this. I really want to know how big it is for this particular operation. And so I'm going to bring another operator out here called absolute value. Now, if you recall, the absolute value, whatever number I put in here, if it's minus, it will just returns the number without the minus sign. If it's positive, it just returns a number. So now I'm going to duplicate this, stick it in there. Now this number will move towards 0 as long as I turn the robot in the right direction. This is the number I want to put in here. Kind of initializes that value. Now I'm going to use this one again in a moment. Okay, so now we're set up. These are my initial setups that I want for this thing. Now I want to put some kind of a looping program in here that will actually do the turn. In this case, let's go to the controls. What I really want is I'm going to use a repeat until. Now this is very similar to the loop variable that we use under the LabVIEW EV3 programming. And you notice the little hexagon, that means that's some kind of condition in the operators. Okay, so now I want a less than operator. Let me go back up here. I'll pull it out. And I'm going to stick that in here. And what I want to know is, has this angle gotten close to 0? So let me duplicate this. Stick it in there. I just happen to know that's not going to work very well. So I'm going to put a 1 or a 2 in here. Well, I'll try 3. Now what this is going to say, I'm going to repeat whatever I'm doing in this loop until the difference in these two angles is less than 3. It's the absolute value of those things. Now inside of here, I've got to decide which way I want to turn to make that happen. So now then, let's go back over in the controls. And we'll get a block, this if then else block, and we'll stick it in here. Now this time we want another condition. I again want the less than, if I can see it. There it is. I want this one to be 0, and I'm going to put this thing in there. Now this says if the angle is negative, do this, otherwise do this. So when it's negative, we will turn left. When it's positive, we want to turn right. I'm going to grab some more of these things. Now, here I have set both speeds to 0. So in this block, I want to set one of the speeds to turn the left wheel and one to turn the right wheel. Now I said here, if this angle is negative, I want to go left. So I want to change that to C speed, and I want to pick some number. I'm going to say 12. And then if it's the other direction, I want to go 12 that way. Now, if I got all of this correct, the robot would now turn one way or the other to achieve what it's supposed to. So now I'm going to connect to my robot. So now I've moved the camera over where you can see my robot. We have a couple of things I didn't get around to doing, and we need to do that now. We need the motor, the robot now to turn. So we want to move it. And I'm going to put it right below here. So now that it's decided which motor to run, each direction, so I want to pull V speed and C speed. Now you can see with the way this is set up, it is going to, one of these motors will be 0 because I set them both to 0 here, and one of them will be set at 12. Okay, so now I have the robot up on the picture. We're almost ready to try this out. We're lacking at least one thing here. This block starts the motors moving. They will not stop unless I tell them to when I'm through with this movement. So I need to bring out of the movement area a stop motor command. Now maybe this is everything. We've told it to turn right. 75 degrees, let's see what happens. Whoa, okay, it's 75 degrees. You'll see that it has turned 75 degrees. Now, there's some things here that I was a little sneaky on. If this number were set to 0, then the robot will overrun the angle you said. I mean, it will continue turning a little bit after you tell it to stop. For my robot, 3 works well. Depending on your wheels, how far apart the wheels are, that will change things. Now, so that basically is it. There's one more thing we can do. You noticed it turned pretty slow. If I try to turn it fast, it will overrun. I'm going to copy this. So now that is the difference in the angle. And I want to add that. It's the absolute value of the difference in the angle. And I want to I'm going to put a 12 in there for this thing, and I'm going to put this block in there, and I'm going to add this on. Whoa. Now what that's going to do is it's going to make the robot turn faster until this angle gets very small, and then it will approximate the 12. And I want to do that twice. Put it down there too. So now that I'm telling the robot to turn more quickly, you'll notice the little red dot down here. This means my program did not stop running. So it is still running. So let's see how to fix that. First I turn it off. Then we want to go back up to control. And down here, well, let's move that over a little. If I add this stop and exit program, then this will behave a lot more like you're used to on the LabVIEW EV3. When the program finishes, this will turn back blue and it's ready to go. So now then, let me kind of get the robot more in the center. And I'm going to make it a little bigger so you can see it better. So we're ready to go. Now I'm telling it to go 75 degrees, and I'm hoping it'll go fast. Okay, and let me bring the magnifier back up. You'll see that it went 75 degrees and it went quickly. If you don't like it that fast, you could still use this and add some more math and multiply this number by something less than 1, and you could slow it down. Also note that the program did end. I don't know if you could have seen it before, but the little green light's not flashing, saying the robot is running. The brakes will have been released so that the wheels will roll easily. Okay, so that is about it. Just for the check, we should try this at different angles. I'll do minus 70, well, let's do a really big one. Let's do minus 180. Let's see if we're in the, here we go. And bring my magnifier back up. You'll see it minus 179. That's about as good as you can do with the gyro. The gyro has a resolution of about 1 degree. It only returns integer values, apparently. If you can get within 1 degree, that's pretty good for LEGO. That's about all I have for now. We will be back with a much more sophisticated program for navigating using the gyro, but that'll come later. Okay, so hopefully if you want to try this program, you'll be able to read all these blocks. So long for now.